Hello, good morning, and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily, where we'll call it your daily dose of sunshine. This 24th day in the month of July, 2025. I'm Ayo Makin, and of course, today I'm with Kayla Megwa. How are you, Kayla?
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your daily dose of sunshine. Even though it's been raining for days right here in the nation's capital, quite a lot of things have been happening here, Ayo. I mean, everyone is talking about these meetings that have been happening, getting ready for the NEC meetings of both parties, the APC and the PDP. Very interesting times that we're in, and we're really looking forward to what the outcomes of these meetings are going to be. I think for the People's Democratic Party, they'll be taking a look at how they can survive. It'll be a meeting about survival, trying to, consolidate and get all of their members together to be on the same page and get it done, and get themselves ready for the elections following these outflows from their party. For the APC, in many ways, it might be a situation where they're trying to consolidate, try to gather all these many interests that have joined their party and see how they can get themselves ready for 2027. Also, the issue of the leadership of the All Progressives Congress, I think that's something we'll be looking out for. And I think we'll have some breaking stories in the next few days, Ayo.
Well, there are so many other things happening. A lot of politics and politicking going on, but that's not also to lose sight of the major issues that affect people directly. For instance, one of the things, Kayla, you remember that I've been talking about is, okay, so now that electricity has kind of been quote-unquote deregulated, and the states can now have their own electricity regulatory agencies, what's going to happen to the establishment, the national body? And now what we understand is that the discos are already having conversations with the states electricity regulatory organizations. That's having these tariff battles back and forth. I knew that was going to happen. I'm just wondering when, and that conversation has to be had, of course. But then there's another cheering news, and I'm sure that these are the issues you'll be taking up with Laulu when you have him after this conversation. That we've been talking about this whole flood projection thing for a while now. It's another thing we shouldn't lose sight of. The federal government has declared that flood prevention is a national security priority, which should be given its due attention, almost like calling it a national emergency of sorts. So while all the politicking is going on, then the various states, the issues that concern the people are right there directly in their faces. But there's another cheering one that came to me, Kayla, that I realized yesterday, that in the first half of the year, 2025, the federal government has raked in revenues of about 43%, almost half the tax revenue of the revenue of the year. The tax revenue has jumped 43% from last year. Now, to me, that is cheering news. Question is, what are we doing with it? Especially at a time where we are hearing all kinds of issues about taxes or no taxes. Let me not jump ahead of myself, Kayla. Take on the next segment with Laulu.
I mean, it's a very dicey one where we move from politics to governance and focusing on what governance means. Absolutely. And the people for whom these people are in power for. One of the most important messages, I think, Ayo, that we've been trying to get people in power to understand is that you are a servant. You're not a ruler. And your job really is people. And how do you make yourself, how do you create a legacy for yourself where you are able to change the lives of the people that you have been called to serve? And one part of the country that has been dealing with the issue of governance is northern Nigeria. When we look at the figures, it's not very encouraging. It doesn't look like a lot has been done to improve the lives of the people. Sure, there are people who have been pulled out of poverty, yes, so a lot of investment programs have been done over the years. But what is happening to governance in northern Nigeria? And that is our first conversation this morning. We have here in the Abuja studios with us Usman Bugaje, who's a member of the Arewa Consultative Forum and former presidential advisor. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Good morning.
Pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, I read it's a long article. But I read some of it, and I mean, indicative of the issues of governance in northern Nigeria. Let's get you to summarize what you think the issues are when it comes to human capital development in northern Nigeria.
Thank you very much. But let me also start by saying the whole country is actually enmeshed in this problem. It's the difference between the North and the South is a matter of degree, because it's the same political culture wherever you go. So, yes, the North is worse off for a number of reasons. A lot of it, if you reduce everything to what it is, it comes to leadership. It's poor leadership. And why is this leadership poor? Because the leadership is very poor education. It has a very poor character. It operates in a very poor political culture. Let me start with the political culture. You look at the life of a governor. If you study him like for 1 week, see his activities, what does he do? How does he spend his time? What does he deliver? He comes out in the, to his office, for those who go to office, and they have a whole, a large crowd following them. They get into the office, there is another larger crowd waiting for them. Most of the people who are there are not there because there is a problem of governance. They are there to solve their personal problems. Somebody cannot send his child to school, he cannot feed, he wants to get a particular position. And these are the kind of things that, cluster or, choke, the governance system. The actual problem where, the normal process where a governor or head of state or president or whoever comes in the office, he gets a briefing from the critical sectors. His chief of staff will brief him on this and this and that, and then maybe
Commissioner of Police for the state.
Yeah, the security, usually they have, their own hierarchy, they will come in, so that he starts the day knowing exactly where things are. And then his private secretary will now bring in the files and the issues that are pending, that are, if you like, urgent, and then he starts treating them. Maybe he attends 1 or 2 meetings and this, but these things don't happen. Because like I said, the culture, the political culture itself. And if I should say a little more, because this is important, we understand why things are not working. The culture, the political culture, is contingent on 2 major things, money and violence. This is how they come to those offices, by use of money, by use of violence. And therefore the people around them are people who are looking for money, people who are good in unleashing violence. And because of that, they cannot prioritize those kind of issues of society. When I spoke about poor character, politics in Nigeria and in many other societies today is the only profession where you can get to the highest office without any qualification. And there is no training. No training is built in within those, if you become a governor by whatever chance, nobody sort of sits you down and say, look, you have to learn how to do this and how to do that. If you care, you might be able to access the training that you want, you can arrange. But there is no particular system that ensures that the governor is trained to understand economics, to understand development, to understand education, or the use of the role of human capital development, to understand these issues. So for him, when you come, he may not even know the number of out-of-school children in his own state. If he does, it may not be his priority, because he doesn't have the vision to see that without developing human capital, the society is actually choking, is actually dying. If you do not develop the human mind, you are basically saying that this society will continue to dwindle, and it will continue until it dies. The first point I made is poor education. Yes. Again, most of the people who come into offices, political offices, have very poor education. They may have certificates, they may have degrees, but they have not quite studied enough to understand power, because they are going to have power in their hands, and they don't understand power. It's very important that people understand power. Power has, at least popularly now, or within academic circles, there are 3 types of power. And each has a role that it plays. There is the hard power, which is coercive, which is generally crude power, where you use the coercive instrument of state. And this is the one that we apply in this country.
Yeah.
This is the one that we are more familiar with. But that is outdated. That is what is called soft power. Soft power, rather than coercing you, it co-opts you. Because soft power is built on empathy, and it seeks to persuade.
Make you a part of what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. This is why I say it co-opts you instead of coercing you. It persuades you. It inspires you. It makes you feel part of it. And so you become a stakeholder. And then you begin to protect those goals, those objectives, those things, that power is designed to do. And this is almost completely missing. Why? Because you have heard sometimes, a few days back or a few months back, a minister sealing off a place where opposition is going to meet, right? I mean, this is use of crude power. And this is outdated because it is this understanding of power. We're stuck with hard power. There is also sharp power. Sharp power is usually manipulative. In its nature, it is subversive, subliminal, and subterranean. Now, this kind of power is usually employed, to destabilize societies. And we have had a lot of people employing their sharp power in these societies. The insurgencies we have had in Boko Haram, the banditries that we are having, the different type of crimes we are having. In fact, there is another kind of application of sharp power that many people are not familiar with. And what is it? And it's causing a lot of havoc. A lot of trash is brought into our own society. There is something they call ice fish, right?
Yes.
They use formalin. I'm a pharmacist, by the way.
Okay.
They use formalin to preserve it. Just, you use formalin to preserve dead bodies, right? And that is very dangerous. We have got this indomine, which has spread. It has monosodium glutamate. This is a very dangerous substance. Many countries have banned it. And so this is causing a lot of damage. And the people in authority, because they have not been educated, they may have collected certificates somewhere by whatever means, but they are not connected with what is happening in their own society in a very intelligible manner where they can measure, they can understand, they can take the necessary policies. So they just go about their business while the ordinary people for whom, ostensibly they are in office, they are dying. Well, I mean, NAFDAC has a lot of this information.
I was just going to get there. When we look at governance and politics, it's a very thin line that as a leader, you have to be able to understand that you don't spend all of your time doing politics and forget about the governance part of things. I think one of the most disappointing things I've ever heard from a government official was when he said categorically, Kayla, education takes 10 years to see the results. I'm only in office for at most 8 years.
Yeah.
I need to cut as many ribbons as possible. I need to be able to consolidate on my base, grow my political base. If I focus on education, if I focus on healthcare, these are things that take time. It's the long haul.
Kayla, this is the point I'm making.
So as a politician, in your view, how do you balance out?
No, this is
being the politician that can have a political career and then trying to focus on governance issues that may take longer than the time you have in office.
Now, this is the problem of education. These politicians, a lot of them are not properly educated. If they were, they would have known that what is required for them is society is a building block, right? When you have a period of 8 years, you are supposed to do as much as you can along that plan.
As much as you can.
Yeah, as much as you can. And you will be measured by the contribution you have made in that direction. Now, I've worked with a few governors, meaning I've advised a few governors. One of the first things that a governor, or even a local government chairman, or anybody who is an executive officer, does when he comes to office is to take the baseline data. Meaning, where are we?
Where are we?
Right? In terms of literacy, in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in terms of jobs, availability and employment, in terms of the critical things, that bother society, insecurity, for example, food, security, for example, medical supplies. So when you know where you are, then you know your budget, or you have an idea of what you are likely to get. Then you now project, okay, in the next 4 years, for example, that I'm going to be in office, I want to reduce the out-of-school children by 25%. How do I do that? I need to build more classrooms. I need to, design, for example, certain like nomadic education, yes, like even going to the motor parks, creating a class, educating the drivers. I mean, there are so many ways to address this issue.
One of the things that you wrote in your article was about the northern crisis demanding urgent leadership, and I think there's a lot of things that you've been speaking to right here, right now. But I want to be able to talk about politics before my colleague in Lagos will get a few questions in. The 2027 politics and the coalition. Just your thoughts. Because it feels like I'm seeing something I've seen before, but it looks like it's on a bigger scale. But we've seen this before. You see, you've been in government long enough to see this so many times. What are your thoughts on this coalition and the positioning for 2027?
My worry is that the whole bunch of politicians that we have, whether they are in APC, PDP, or coalition, they don't seem to me to appreciate the future. Their focus is always election, power, appointment, amassing wealth, living
the spokesperson for the life said this is not true. But yesterday, it's true. He said categorically, he said, look, this is not about power. This is about making our country better.
But these are rhetorics, Kayla.
So you don't believe the ADC?
No. The issue is that the rhetorics, we have had, we want to see it on the ground. What is there to let me, for example, some of the people in the ADC are the same people who have stolen large amounts of money in the last administration. They're in the EFCC paying back, right? So how do you explain their presence there? What are they doing? What role are they going to play? I worry if they ever get to power, these are the same people who will get into the same position and steal more money, destroy this country, destroy its future. So my point is that, look, if the ADC or the coalition wants to create some hope, let us see the team. Let us see their appreciation of the issues. There are no discussions on the future of this country. All the discussions, what political party are we going to use? What combination of people, some kind of X and Y, Z and A and B and C, and so that we can get the votes, right? They assume.
What do we do?
They assume that the votes.
How do we get more numbers?
They assume that the votes are static. They assume the votes are static. And therefore they want to say, okay, this person has gotten this vote, this person, so if we brought this to him, we are going to get this number of votes, and okay, fine. But the point is, what are you going to do with the power when you acquire it? Can't you engage with the issues? Engage with the issue. Let us see what problem you have. I mean, what solution do you have to insecurity? How are you going to get us out of this energy poverty? Because without fixing electricity, so many things are going to suffer. Even insecurity is a factor.
Let me toss it to my colleague in Lagos. Ayo.
Thank you, Kayla. Perhaps, sir, the challenge here is whether or not there is a vision. I hear you talking about the fact that governors in particular need to take stock. First of all, let me ask you, what is your take on the fact that, to a large extent, most of the time when we're having these conversations, a good number of people are looking more at the federal government, at what is happening at the federal level of government, as opposed to what is happening in the states closer to them, much less the local government areas. What is your take on that perspective?
Well, first, it's not a correct perspective, because a huge amount of national resources is given to the states and is supposed to trickle down to the local governments, even though governors are blocking that particular path. But certainly we need to focus on the states, because they are also executive, they are a tier of government, they have a responsibility clearly cut out for them, and therefore we should be able to focus our mind. But perhaps why some people also focus on the federal government, because the federal government seems to be affecting what is happening in the states in ways that the laws of the country do not allow. Look at the intervention of the president in the case of Rivers. I mean, everybody has experts in law have written that this is wrong, you cannot do that. Yet the president went ahead to do it, and there are no consequences. So because of the kind of banditry type of governance at the federal level, it has made people to start like getting worried. What are they up to? And look at the way they are using sharp power to destroy opposition. Bringing in somebody who is not party, giving him all the resources available, to go and destroy a party. These kind of things do not, create anything positive. Because what they do, and if you permit me just 1 minute to make this very important point, is that they destroy trust. And you see, modern governance is, predicated on trust. Once you lose this trust, this is why people will never pay their taxes except if it becomes absolutely necessary. They will not do the right thing even when they have the opportunity to do so. They will not cooperate with government, no matter what, because they don't trust it. And it is this issue of trust that is creating. You had governors complaining about ghost workers. They bring big volumes of people, which is true, which is unfortunate. But what is it that makes people to behave like that? Because they don't have confidence in government, because they don't trust government will take care of their own thing. Look at the police. When they came out to protest a few days back, the danger is that corruption is going to increase in the police force, because many of those people who are serving now will now see, if you retire, these are the kind of treatment the government is going to give you, and therefore let me grab as much as I can at the moment. So the police force is going to be inefficient. It's all a problem of trust. But you see, because this bunch of politicians are not properly educated, they don't even understand the damage they are bringing into this country. They have no idea of what the future of this country is. They care about themselves, their power, and their lifestyle, and they want to grab as much as possible.
Prof. I think it's absolutely important to underscore that point that you made, that issue of trust. But then there is also the argument of whether or not the governors know what is expected of them. You've talked about the fact that they don't have enough education, and consequently a little less should be expected of those who don't have so much. So in terms of the functions of state, particularly at the state levels, there is a lot more scrutiny on the federal government, and of course that is to be expected. But how do you think we can go about demanding accountability, demanding responsibility from the states where people, every politician is from a state. Every politician is from one local government or the other in a particular state. But a lot more attention, a lot more focus is on the federal government, particularly by the politicians. So is there a role for the citizens to hold the feet of the governors, of the various state governments to the fire, to deliver maximally for them, as opposed to the distraction, because that's what some people have called it, of focusing on the federal government and pretty much giving the governors or the state governments a slap on the wrist when they err?
It's more than a role, it's a responsibility. And this is the work of the civil society. Civil societies don't have to be the kind of NGOs that wait for America, USAID, or some other people to give them money. This is sometimes the picture of people. No, faith-based organizations are also civil society, because they are about, an engagement between the society and governance. And we need to encourage them. If I tell you the last 12, 13, 14 years, exactly from 2011, I decided with colleagues to set up Arewa ARDP development project. Now that research and development project was meant to do exactly that. And what did we do? We took some kind of baseline, and then we developed, after like 2 years with conferences, meetings, consultations, a development agenda. We called it Strategic Development Agenda for the North. And the acronym was STAND. That STAND document, which was initially about 300 pages, we later on reduced it after 3-year review to about 200 pages, has basically all that you require as a governor. If you come to office, you have no idea of what to do, that document will tell you exactly where where to go in economic development, in human capital development, in governance and security, in so many other things. And it has been broken down in very simple terms. And we engage our colleagues in the United States, in Philippines, in UK, in South Africa, just to make sure that we have got all the best practices. But that document was not even read by these governors. We engage them severally. They don't even read. Okay, this is not to say that we should stop, but this is one effort that we have pushed. And we engage the governors quite okay, but I can assure you, when you engage them, I mean, the attention span that they have is very short. And they don't seem to, they see us as academics, just finesse. We talk about this, and they are the politicians. They know how to deceive and manipulate people and get the votes by whatever means, and carry themselves high and all this protocol. But they do not see that that has no meaning if you cannot deliver on the ground. And the one other thing also that makes it easy for them to escape is because the civil societies that we have not developed a proper metrics for governance. For example, you find people being praised for doing this, for doing that. How much money have you gotten? How much of it have you used? How many problems have you solved? There are basic ways of M&E, monitoring and evaluation, that will allow you to know. So again, it is something that the elite now have to lead. And I have always spoken about the fact that there has to be an elite consensus in this country as to where do we want this country to be in the next 10 or 25 years.
And I think that is important, particularly for northern Nigeria,
if you can hear me.
I think that's a very, yes, I think that's a very important element, particularly for the northern elite, because the good number of research materials, thankfully you're a researcher, that point to the fact that the source of all of the insecurity, particularly in the north, is rooted in poverty. And if we can solve the problem of poverty through these economic developments, economic activities that you're talking about, a whole load of poverty is taken care of and a whole load of insecurity is taken care of. But there is also the place of vision. I'm glad to hear about this document, and I really wish everyone in Nigeria can be able to see those documents and compare whoever is going to be governor in any northern state.
Yeah, an electronic copy.
To be able to look at it. We'll be glad to have it. One of the things that I want to ask about that, I remember that such a similar document was prepared, I think, by Awolowo before he died. And the stories have it that it's one of the documents that the former governor of Lagos State, who is now president, was given, that he used as part of instruments to catalyze what became the 25-year plan of Lagos State at the time. Now, I said that to say that it is difficult to plan a 25-year agenda in 4 years. Today it is this party. Tomorrow it could be another party. This development idea or agenda that you have proposed is not limited to just 4 years. It has to be long-term. Now, is there a place in that program that says that these are the things that can be achieved in every 4 years, and that irrespective of which party comes in next, that program will be continued? That's usually the challenge in our development agenda, isn't it?
Some of us who made that stand document were not in any particular party, right? We brought in experts from different parts, of the North to sit down and do that. So it's not a political document. It's a document that everybody can own and use. So, and the fact that when parties change, you find policies might differ, but the overall objective of development, because the purpose of government is basically development. If it fails to develop, then it has failed in its primary responsibility. If you go back to our constitution, this section, I think 4B, has made very clear the responsibility of government is basically the welfare and security of citizens. And that's basically a summary of development. So we feel the fact that parties change is no excuse for people not to build on the development they found that has been done by others. And that is not to say that they have to do everything that the person who started. They can modify, based on a number of factors, based on the priorities of their own party. If, for example, a social democratic party comes in, it has in its manifesto a pro-poor policy, so maybe they can prioritize that, but they will not ignore, for example, human capital development, because which way, either way, you need human capital development. This is something that is, essential. It doesn't matter the party, it doesn't matter the situation. It's the life of that society. Without human capital development, that society is going to eventually go into extinction.
I mean, I'm looking at the title of this document, Nigeria is in crisis. Enough of politicians, where are the statesmen? Precisely.
We are looking for statesmen. These are the people we need today. I can tell you honestly today, we don't need politicians. After all, Taylor, 25 years ago, since 25 years, it's the politicians who have been playing this game.
But we do have statesmen. We have people who call themselves statesmen. Former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan is a statesman.
I absolutely agree. I concede that he's a statesman. Now, what I'm saying is that his own character should now be reflected in those who are playing politics. Because if they continue to play politics and ignore the character or the model of this kind of, taking these people as model, I mean, General Gawan is there, one of the oldest.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo is a statesman. So there's so many, we have a whole generation, they've not died, they're all here.
Yeah, no, but the point is, let me emphasize on this, the point is, these people are statesmen. Why? Because they are looking at the next generation. The politicians are only looking at the next election.
So these statesmen have not been able to impact this generation of politicians?
No, it's the other way around. The politicians should be looking up to the statesmen and come to them, share their experiences, so that in their governance, they will not be governing as politicians, they will be governing as statesmen who have concern for the next generation, not concern for the next election.
You had complained about a few things. I want to know where you stand on them right now. Do you still feel like the tax reform bills of the president should be thrown in the dustbin? That was what you said.
I said so. There has been a lot of changes, since then.
So we're not throwing it away anymore?
Because they have considered to change it, but perhaps for the pressure that was put, they would not have considered. So I'm happy for the improvement, but I'm still waiting to see how it's going to play out.
You also complained that the president was a little detached from the Nigerian people, detached from the suffering of the Nigerian people.
I think he is.
He still is?
I think he still is. I think he still is. You remember, I mean, a Singaporean diplomat, described Trump's first-term government, as incestuous, self-preferential insularity. And I find that fitting.
I want you to finish the sentence. Fitting?
Fitting our president. Oh, yes.
He wouldn't agree. His people...
He doesn't have to agree. He doesn't have to agree.
In their mind, they feel like
they
inherited a situation that doesn't really look good. They inherited a country in crisis. The issue may be, is he fixing it? Is he fixing it fast enough? But he didn't create the problem, did he?
Is his appointment not incestuous? Is he not self-preferential? Is he not insular? People in his government, in his party, have complained, some of them publicly, that they can't access him.
Okay, let me see if I can get you. The APC using money to buy off the PDP. You still think this is happening? Have they won? Has the APC won?
Let's ask the PDP. Let's ask the PDP.
Have they won?
When you are making your remarks, PDP is having its own APC. I was about to ask you, Keller, what's the difference really between the two? Tell me. Tell me.
One is swelling and one is stinging up. There's a difference. One is getting bigger, one is getting smaller.
You mean one is sucking the other,
yes,
right?
One is sucking in the other.
Very good. I'm happy you said that.
What do you make of that situation, though? Both parties are having meetings, getting ready for their NEC meetings, you know, getting themselves together. We're also seeing the ADC, the Labour Party. Everyone is trying to get themselves together.
Kayla, my worry is that when they meet, they only discuss politics. They don't discuss the country. They don't discuss the future. Kayla, we are in a very serious problem.
It's political parties that are meeting. They're not going to be talking governance at a political rally. They're going to be trying to position themselves, get leadership, do this.
No, if you don't discuss governance, what metrics do you use to bring in people to be responsible? If you are taking, I mean, let's say you are the managing director of channels, right? And you are recruiting some young people, right? You want to see, I mean, are they fit to work, you know, the kind of employment you are engaging them? They are now going to be selecting a chairman, right? Right? Okay. Yes. If all the parameter, all the indices for selection are entirely political, they have nothing to do with development. They have nothing to do with character. They have nothing to do with reforms within the political system itself.
Yes.
For me, that's a failure.
All right, we do have to anchor there, but I want to thank you very much, Mr. Usman Bugaje, member Iowa Consultative Forum. Our greetings to everyone.
Thank you, my
Consultative Forum. And former presidential advisor. Thank you so much again.
My pleasure.
All right, we're going to a short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at some of the major stories in the news. What's up? What's going down? Who's in trouble? Who's moving forward? All of that when we come back. Stay with us.